Hey guys, just another wonderful low budget film being done here in the shop. So don't judge my skills on my camera. Trust me, I can build a better box than this. But I just wanted to give you guys a bit of an update on the general Excalibur. I think it's a 40 series slider that I have. Um, it's middle of February now. I've had some time to put some work through it, and I thought maybe I'd just go over a couple of things I like and a couple of things maybe I don't like. So, let's see. All right. So, looking at the back half, everything pretty well works just as expected here. There's no surprises. It's just the glides are good. The adjustments stay put. The bearing races actually stay clean. There wasn't really any break-in to worry about. It seems to work all the same from day one to now. I think this foot brace of Brian's here is an excellent idea. I think that's really helping a lot. And you also see the little, I guess, miter arm holders, these little U-shaped brackets. And, that's great. It's just a really easy, simple place to stick it. And if they didn't have them, I'm sure it'd be scabbing something onto the side of this thing to replicate that. So, as you can tell, this thing is set up right now. I'm breaking down some 28 6-inch wide gables, and I like this little dog on the end, this little end bit. It actually, when you clamp it in, comes perfectly parallel to the rest of the fence, and that surprised the heck out of me. But it really works well when you have an 8-foot long piece. It just helps sort of get that corner and get it forward, get it moving, and keeps it from twisting out. Because when you're standing out over here, it's just the nature of things. You got 2 feet to your right and you got 6 feet to your left. If it can pull that way, it probably will try to. Something that I've so far has been totally useless for me is this little. I don't know if you can see that. Oh, let's hold on here. This little U, like that thing there. So far, haven't used it at all. It's gotten in the way a little bit. I have to keep it in that backwards position because this is not flush. This part here is not flush to the tube. So what that means is if this is rotated in any position other than this position here, this flange edge will stick out past the face of this fence block, and as such you can't run a full 8-foot piece through there. So I don't really know why or what the thought was behind all that. I'm sure somebody somewhere is probably thinking, dude, you're smoking crack. I love that thing. And maybe if I ever have 100 widgets I got to pop off at once, I'm going to like that hook. But don't forget that this stop right here, it follows right along. You can put it right on top of that fence block, so not really needed. Everything here works like it should. I've really actually taken a liking to this whole mechanism right here. They did a really good job with the Delron slides and the simple zeroing pin, if you will. It works well. It's accurate every single time. I've never had an issue with it. This system here works pretty good. It's a little tough getting in and out, so I just recently tried sticking some glide coat on it to see if that'll help. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll give it a bit of time. But you know what? Minor things. Absolutely minor things. Overall, this system, it rolls really well. There's no drag whatsoever. Having the panel stop right there, or the switch right there, is fantastic. I love it as much now as I did on day one. Best place for it, and I use it all the time, and I'm never searching for it. So I think that's a great feature. This thing's cutting clean and square. I have not changed the setup at all. I have not touched it one bit since the initial setup. And that was, well, I don't know, look at my other video, but that was weeks or months or some time ago. Now this piece has got a little bit of a warp, this ply does, on it right now, so that's why it's popping up. But normally when you're holding it, you're cutting it, you're pushing down. And here's an offcut right from that piece. And I don't know how close this camera is actually going to get. Not well at all. Oh, there we go. It is perfect cuts. And I attribute that to the fact that this the sled on this carriage assembly is essentially lifting the sheet up maybe a couple thou, maybe 5-10 thou over the rails, and then the rails are maybe another 20 thou or so higher than the table. So overall we got maybe 30 thou above, which means that this is essentially running right on the surface. This wood is running right on the table surface without having the full weight dragging, so it pushes a lot easier. Therefore, your zero clearance insert actually works like it should. And if you throw a $100 blade at it, and you have this, well, maybe the blade's a little more than that, but if you have good plywood, this is domestic grade plywood, it's fantastic. Couldn't be happier. And that's one of the main things. One of the other main things is that there is no tear out on these corners back here. And I used to get a tear out every single time on that little corner right there. Simply because this back panel that would be on this part of the offcut, it just had too much drag. There was too much weight pulling back on it. I mean, it's hard to describe, but I'm sure if you've experienced it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And so then once you're just completing it, it gets a little tear out. So there's this little handle hiding in here, and it kind of looks like maybe a goofy situation, but it's not as bad as one would think. It actually pulls out pretty good, and it is darn handy when you're cutting full sheets or large sheets on a crosscut. It just gives you something to sort of hang on to and push and pull off of once you're getting near the end of your reach, which is really nice, because I have always found that with a typical sled, right near the end, you're just kind of pushing, but you can't hold the sled at all, and you're hoping, sort of, that everything's going to stay where it does. And sometimes it did, and sometimes it didn't. So that's a pretty decent feature. One I wouldn't trade anything for. The numbers on the top, haven't used them. One of the things that became clear to me about the first minute after using this is that you need to basically set the clearance or the distance between the end of the fence and away from the guard. In this case, it runs about a 1/4 inch away from the guard. You have to set that up, and then of course the scale is based off of that. It starts at 1. So even if I never move this, even if this always came back to the same spot, I would have to go 1 plus 2 7/8, or who knows, whatever that space there is. So I don't use it. I don't really know if there's ever would be an application for it. That said, I'm sure someone's going to write in and say, oh yeah, well, it's good for this. So who knows. But as you can tell, it does a wonderful job. It sneaks up close, and you can set it wherever you want it. If you want to do dados or something and you want it right up tight close to a dado for smaller pieces, great, have at her. This hasn't changed at all in drag. It's been great, runs perfect. It would be nice if it's a little bit freer, but that said, I think that's just a spit and polish kind of thing. I don't actually think it would serve any purpose other than just make me feel happier every time I roll the thing forwards and backwards. So yeah, take that for what it's worth. One of the big things that I was debating about before on the previous video was the fact that should I get this model, which I think is the 50P40 or something like that, or the next model up. And the next model up essentially adds, I think, roughly another foot or so in crosscut. Maybe it's 1.5 feet, and it's I think overall a little bit larger in terms of front and back. I don't know if side to side it's any larger, but if it is, wouldn't see any purpose behind that. Initially, I had said if you got the space, go for it. Now, I don't see any need or purpose for it. I still wish I had 1 more inch past the push through. So when I have the fence in the back slot here, and I cut a 48-inch piece, I have 1 inch clearance. Yeah, so like I was saying, it only gives me about 1 inch clearance when I'm doing a 48-inch cross cut. Not a big deal on some ply, but you know, especially some of the MDF or some of the higher grade ply, melamine for example, even they come in 49s. So you got to run the blade higher in order to make that cut, because it's not 1 inch clearance on the back, it's 1 inch clearance on the front. In other words, it essentially just finishes the cut on the front. That I don't love. I would really like this thing to clear the blade right through on the back, or at least get to the middle of it. And you know, I might just unbolt this entire thing one day and move the whole thing down 3 or 4 inches, because I do have, I think, about 6 or so inches on the front. And as I said in the previous video, I did have to drill some holes in there and mount this further forward than would normally be the case, just because there was nothing made to easily bolt up with this year or vintage of Unisaw. I don't know if others would be different. So here is where General dropped the ball. And General, if you were listening, had I known this, I'm not sure I would have bought it. You see that stupid little dog that we're talking about over there? But guess what? If we're going to keep it in the position that it is, so that it is not getting in the way, when we flip this fence around, look at what's in the way. So what's the solution? Well, you can pull it out and remove it, I guess, every time you want to flip your fence. Or you can flip your block around, etc., or whatever. But I'm not going to do any of that. You know, and so I am stuck with doing an extra step of pulling that whole black tube with the fence stop block or end block out and just putting it somewhere on the side, because otherwise it's in the way. And there is no way of rotating it. Even though there's different grooves on there, there's no way of rotating it and having it still line up at the front, have this little foot kick out wing thing out of the way, and have the dog at the back or the top. Not the dog, the tightening wing nut assembly. You know, and to their credit, these ratchet bolts that they use these for the nuts are good, but on a crappy end design here, it still sucks monkey ass. So be warned, if you are switching this thing back and forth often, you are going to hate that fact. Myself, turns out I use it about 90% of the time in the fence forward, like fence at operator side position. So it's not a deal breaker, I guess, but I sure would have liked to known about it. And you know what? I think I might just take the chop saw to that little end thing and get rid of it, and yeah, maybe do something like that and thread in a new spot off of the back, just so I can get that stupid tab out of there. Other than that, you guys, this thing has been solid. It's cut everything I've thrown at it. Breaking down gables, like you even saw that 26-inch gable I had up there, no problem. I think I could run, I guess, 36 inches or 30-something inches of gables, which I never do. It's always smaller stuff. And it really surprised me with overall how well it worked. You know, one little screw up, but 1,000 other good things that are really good. So overall, what do I say? Maybe 9 out of 10, I'd say. If it wasn't for that, I'd probably get 9 3/4 out of 10. But yeah, it is what it is. I'm Canadian. I like to whine and write letters, so be it. Hope this helps somebody considering looking at this this unit in the future. And got any questions, just post them up. I'll do my best to answer them.